He's going that way.
Yeah, he has to.
Finally took the Bronco off-road, like real off-road, more than just a gravel road. We found some trails up in North Georgia, went through a creek, got it completely bottomed out in a creek, even found a hill that I couldn't quite make it up, at least with my skill level, and got the thing stuck enough that it was better to pull out the winch. So with that level of off-roading, what kind of damage might we see under the vehicle? Any kind of evidence of scarring and abrasion that happens from rubbing on rocks. What I'm curious about is, now that we know where the armor is under the vehicle, can we identify if that's the right place? Is this damage somewhere that seems unprotected, or does this seem very much considered in the design of the vehicle? So let's take a look. We'll start right here at the front. Obviously it's dirty. I did my best with a pressure washer to get under it and clean stuff up. What you'll see over here, this heavy scarring was there before I went on this trip. I got a little overzealous with some concrete and boulders that I saw sitting around that I wanted to crawl up on just to kind of see what the thing could do. So that was before, but everything else we see is going to be from this trip. So you can see these protruding low spots are clear rubbing, right? So here, this is all to be expected. This is this really thick front bash plate. On my long walkthrough video, I talked about pulling this panel off. I put it on a scale. It's actually 20 pounds all by itself. So pretty cool to see that this heavy duty thing has not deformed at all, but it's certainly taken a lot of scuffing from things that it's run up across. That being said, it's even these stickers are in place. It's just these frontmost protruding bits that have received any kind of scarring so far. Now, when I look over here, there's a little bit of scraping on the stamped steel portion that holds the lower control arm. It's still very superficial though. This isn't something that would compromise the geometry here or anything else. It's just right on the bottom. You can feel that it's a little bit scuffed. Now, the control arm itself has actually taken a tiny bit of abuse. So if you see here, there's a little chip and a drag just in a couple places. Obviously, again, superficial. This is not going to be something that would concern me about the longevity of the part, but it is interesting to see where some of this damage lies. Now, out there, I got water up to at least beyond halfway up the tire. So it's interesting also to take a look at moving back. We've got this big skid plate. This one I also pulled off and weighed it at about 10 pounds. It looks like it probably didn't receive any kind of impact or sliding abrasion from this adventure. But good durable one, glad to have it there. This protects the oil pan and the oil drain plug. That's all protected under there. This control arm over here just looks like it got a touch dirty. I don't see any evidence of scarring on there. So this one didn't seem to encounter anything. And then this might just be the original shape. I don't see anything on this side. So a little more aggressive on the driver's side. Just happened to be the trail I was on, I think. So as we move further back, you can see everything got pretty dirty and muddy. That's no surprise there. We've got these big, thick, boxed-in frames, and we'll see in a little bit where they drag a little. I wanted to point something out while I'm in here. They actually put a cool cutout in the stamping of this rail, and it shows you exactly where you're supposed to jack from, which I thought was pretty cool. So this big crossbeam here, we could see some definitely some evidence, a little bit here of maybe some dragging. This guy's caked in with some mud, but actually maybe not, because the head of that actually looks pretty clean. Now here we see some dragging. Again, this is all superficial kind of stuff. I don't think anything should be alarming. Look how thick. You see that? Look how thick that sheet metal is, right? So scuffing this up is, in my opinion, this plate just doing its job. This is the plate that is directly below the transfer case, so it's designed to protect that part of the machinery. And again, being submerged up to pretty much the axles, everything stayed reasonably clean up there, so I'm happy to see that. The exhaust all looks very clean. All the mud and underwater from the creek doesn't seem to have left much evidence. All right, so here is a cross member that we can certainly see some linear scuffing from just dragging along something. And some of this could just be like some heavy bush and limbs and stuff like that are down low, up to like actual dirt that we're pushing around, things like that. Hard for me to say, but clearly some evidence of some light scarring there. Now, I have to say I'm really, really impressed with the armor for the gas tank here. So that's a pretty heavy scuff that I don't recall being there beforehand. So hit something very specifically right there. Just looks like the sharp edge of a rock, something like that. And then some of that has continued here. We've lost paint in a few places, some heavy scarring on the leading edge of this armor. And you can see it's armor because you've got the steel underpart here, and then this is like inch welded on top of there, additional armor. So honestly, I'm not sure if this panel is going to be there in all trims or not. As a reminder, this is a Badlands, so maybe this is something that you get additionally in the Badlands. And I'll tell you this much, if I had one of these without this plate, I'd feel like I'm missing out, because this is really taking a lot of the abuse. If we back up here and we look underneath, that is like the longest path that's closest to the breakover angle point of the vehicle. I imagine it would be even more extreme on a 4-door, and this 2-door is certainly showing evidence of needing this plate here. So very, very happy to have that kind of armor. Further back, another transition point here. See some scuffing along here. I did at one point kind of slide sideways a little bit off of my footing, and I think maybe this might be evidence of that, because it's not in the direction that the vehicle was traveling. Well, I say the vehicle was traveling, that the vehicle should drive straight. It's probably in the direction that it was traveling when it was sliding down an embankment a little bit. So that's what's going on there. Now, when we move further back, remember in the long one I was talking about these rubber boots that are only on the external reservoirs for the rear shocks, not on the front. These things are very dirty, so they're certainly exposed to the elements. With it being rubber, they're not going to have a lot of like physical memory. Oh, that's interesting. Wasn't maybe on there perfect. They're not going to have a lot of memory as far as like if they got nicked by a rock. Just that's how rubber is. So I would not know if this has protected it on my journey from direct impact from a rock or from something like that. But it certainly got dirty, so it was certainly in the elements. Bottom of this guy, I don't feel any actual like scrapes or anything. I don't. Maybe right here. I don't think anything on this actually rested on anything. I think it just got dirty. So that's both of these trailing arms, whatever you call them, dirty, but not damaged. Moving back to the differential in the axles, I don't see anything back here that suggests any kind of impact. What I was doing didn't seem to directly contact much of this. Lots of dirt back here, of course. And same here. So departure angle is the next thing that would see a lot. Obviously, I didn't have this cool tow hitch on here when I was off-roading. That would have struck and been pretty severe. But let's see. Let's zoom in a little bit. So right here, just looks dirty. No serious scarring or anything like that. And these really are like the furthest protruding points. So for these guys to not be scuffed up makes me think that I didn't really do anything in my departure angle that caused any damage. Now, if I move over here to the bumper, this is, would you believe someone actually ran into me on the trail? Yes, a car actually sideswiped me coming the other direction, but the damage is super minor, super light scarring on the plastics here. You can see that it's little bits, you know, what can you do, right? But all of this back here is from kind of falling back into like a little dirt hole. So that kind of light damage from just kind of sliding into some embankments, no big deal. Nothing that's concerned my prox sensors or the shape of the bumper or anything like that. So very happy with how all this is held up. Anyways, you know, I can show you all kinds of things that have gotten dirty, but I'm really excited to report very minimal damage, and all of the scarring and everything I'm seeing is right on these very structural bash plates. So clearly a lot of engineering has gone into the design of this. At one point, I actually recall dropping onto these rock rails, like the full weight of the vehicle, I felt like. And let's look at what this is showing. So I think this is just dirty. Maybe that's some scuffing. It's kind of hard to tell. Back to the back here. This looks very clean. I mean, it's dirty, but the scarring on a leading edge here would be pretty easy to identify, and I don't see any. Now let's look at the other side. This is looking good too. Here we go. This is where I really put it to use. So definitely some scarring on here. But I've looked it over pretty carefully down on the ground, and it's still straight as an arrow. I don't see that any evidence that it's been bent up closer to the body or anything like that. Something to know when you do attempt to put this vehicle on a lift. This side, we're on the passenger side, rear. This is where you have to be most particular about how you mount it. You see here, there's no identifier as to where to mount back here, but obviously you want to do it before you get to it, stepping down. But you get real close to the gas tank and to the armor, so you've got to kind of watch this side most carefully when you put it on a lift. The rest are all pretty easy. Again, the front ones have the arrows. The rear one on that side has nothing kind of in its way, so just pay attention to the fuel tank on this side. But that brings me to another point. This all got pretty dirty on the leading edge, and you can see that it dug some dirt into these holes here. So likely scrubbed up against some kind of dirt surface, but I guess nothing metal or nothing strong enough to actually leave any kind of abrasion. Just that. And again, we're talking some really, really thick sheet metal here. Oh, gross. Stuffed a bunch in there, but yeah, so this is what happens, I think, from when I was rolling back into the dirt. It just stuffed itself in there a bunch. I wonder if that spread out. Nope. This is the same shape. So you can see that it just scooped up a bunch there. And this side didn't really contact anything. At least it cleaned up better. So, yeah, stuffed that full of dirt. I'm gonna see if I can pick some of that out. What's my conclusion? Well, I would say this thing did a great job and the engineers really thought this through. If you were following the Bronco along when they were first designing the vehicle and talking about it, there were constantly these trips where they would take it out to Moab and all kinds of off-road places and try out the Bronco in the element that they designed it for. And in the process, I'm sure they figured out all these different places that they needed to put extra armor. And in my opinion, from just one outing, it seems like everything they've done, that I've done to it so far, they've thought through and they've put intention in their design. So I think I should expect to see a lot more of the same as I continue to push this vehicle. The engineering is far ahead of where I've pushed it and where I plan to push it, I hope. So I'm really excited for this journey. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time. We'll continue going on adventures in this vehicle.